Hey, what's up, everybody? Scott here from the Mirror Point, where reality checks itself. We're going to check out how this atheist actually this Christian pastor actually refuted atheism. That should be interesting. So we'll check that out with an open mind and see what we think. Let's get going. Good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to take a look at a video. This is from Apologia. I think it's Apologia Studios or something like that. That's the name of the channel. And this is run by Jeff Durbin, I think it is. He's a pastor, apologist, and he promotes the presuppositionalism, the presuppositionalist apologetic for Christianity or for God. And so, yeah, we'll check this out and see what this pastor is talking about. We'll see what's going on.
So for example, like animal rights activists will say it should be a crime to destroy certain eggs of certain creatures. That should be a crime. But those same people will be for the destruction of, say, a human being growing in the fetus.
Okay, but have you asked people are you assuming that people have certain opinions on animal rights who are in this march?
No. It's obviously, it's not monolithic. It's a mixed bag. So that's why the variety of interviews to see the wide spectrum of beliefs.
Yeah. Again, I'm just interested to see how it's framed and if it's presented accurately.
I'll tell you this: we're Christians, and we have an obligation because of what we believe to have integrity and to tell the truth. So say, for example, if you had atheists in here marching today, they don't have a workable worldview to make sense of integrity. So the person you should be worried about is the atheist who has a worldview that says that there are no absolutes.
Okay, so this gets into presuppositionalism. So basically, they're saying if you don't have a foundation for a moral standard, then your morality is up to opinion. And if it's up to opinion, then opinions can be dismissed, but having a foundation, a standard, has a lot more power behind it, is the idea here. And so that's what he's laying out. And I think a lot of you guys already know this already.
From a Christian perspective, there's an absolute standard that I must maintain integrity and always tell the truth. And to not tell the truth is a sin.
Okay. But people can't have their own moral compass without a divine reason?
Well, I would say that you can't have a meaningful justification for a moral complaint if you don't have God as the absolute standard.
So that's the pivotal point right there. Meaning. Is meaning something that is subjective? Are values and meanings and purposes subjective, or do they rely on an objective standard? Right? So that's really the question at stake. And let's see what the atheist has to say.
So, for example, if you were to take the atheist framework, right, and say the view of origins, where...
Is there an atheist framework, or is
Sure.
atheism literally just the meaning, not believing in God?
Right, because atheism means a lot of things to different people. So some people consider themselves atheists, and they may be Republicans or Democrats, or they may be believing in ghosts, and they may not be skeptics. They may be, into supernatural beliefs, afterlives, things like that. Not all of them are a monolith. Just like Christianity. Christianity isn't a monolith. There's all kinds of versions of Christianity. So the atheist framework is what she's saying. Is what is the atheist framework? Isn't it just a single response to a single question, namely God?
Well, you could say that the statement, the claim, there is no God, but it's not.
But is it a statement of all people who may consider themselves atheists, or maybe best described as atheists because of their belief or lack thereof? Is there something to say that they all share something?
Sure, a denial of God's existence and the belief that, say, and it's not to say that atheism is monolithic. You have atheists who are dualists, atheists who are naturalistic materialists. They believe that all there is matter and motion, that all there is the natural, nothing supernatural, but they have the same fundamental claim about the universe: is there's no God, no governance, no guidance, no.
Well, they may or may not say that. That's the whole thing. They may just be agnostic about the question of God, therefore they don't believe in the God. But I get the point. They operate from a non-God point of view. That's probably the best way to say it. An atheist could be agnostic, therefore not believe, and therefore not revolve his decisions about or around a belief in God, because he doesn't have that belief. Maybe he lacks any beliefs at all. Maybe he's a skeptical kind of atheist, and he's just agnostic about a lot of things, right? So that's probably the best way for the Christian to say it, is that all atheists in common, regardless of what flavor of atheism you have, you probably operate from a non-God position by definition.
Personal God, no personal border.
Okay, have you met someone who would describe themselves as an atheist who just doesn't care what's out there and doesn't deny the existence of God, but just doesn't really care?
That'd be saying agnostic.
Why?
Well, an agnostic would say, you can't know.
Yeah, it's being hung up on labels. I can't stand labels. Labels are, an artifact of language, and language is just descriptors. And, words don't have intrinsic meanings. They have different values or meanings behind them, And so playing word games really doesn't get you anywhere with your interlocutor. It's better to understand where your interlocutor is coming from in order to have a meaningful conversation.
Don't really care,
Atheist just means not religious. No,
the classical. A is a negation of theist. So
the way I would do it with a person like that is I just give them whatever they want. Okay, I'm not an atheist. Now what? I'm an agnostic. Okay, let's move the conversation forward, because that's really all sort of besides the point, right? Being hung up on word games sort of makes me suspicious about the motivations of the person who employs word games. It's almost like they're playing gotcha questions.
Theism, agnostic means without knowledge, without God. So their classic definition of an atheist is there is no God. That's what the word means. And so with that,
that's what it's become to me.
Well, that's the classic definition.
People who choose to ascribe to, well, there may be people who choose to use that word who are very adamant that they're, in the same way that there are some people who would deem themselves religious, especially in a place like Ireland. There would be people that I know who may say, well, maybe I'll get married in a church just for shits and giggles kind of thing. But actually, if you sat down with them, they probably don't believe.
It would just be cultural.
She's trying to be reasonable with this person, and this person has an agenda and is not going to be open to reason. I've seen enough of this guy's videos. I'm familiar enough with him and apologists like him to know that they're not in it to have a really reasonable conversation where they can learn together and reason together. They're there to sort of play gotcha questions, corner you logically, and try to make you look like a fool in order to browbeat you into saying that they won the argument. I don't even think that they're interested so much in saving souls. And a lot of these people are Calvinists who believe that, you're predestined to either go to heaven or go to hell anyway. So it really doesn't matter, right? I mean, at least that's the way I see it. Now, I know that they'll say that, well, I'm just have the privilege to be used by God to be part of the factor that moves someone into doing what they were already going to do in the first place. I just happen to be that tool being used by God. Well, you're a tool, all right.
Thing.
Right.
It's cultural.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think but then you have people who feel very strongly about their beliefs, and I think there would be people who feel very strongly about their lack of belief. But I suppose a belief that there is no God is a belief.
Sure it is. And at the same time,
but then I think there are people who just don't give a shit.
Well, sure, yeah. There's more indifferent atheists, and then there are militant atheists, right? The spectrum gets pretty broad. But what I would say is there's a shared belief among atheists in terms of origins. So atheism is a denial of God's existence, but atheism has a particular metaphysic, a particular ethic, a view of how they know things. Now, it may not be the same across the board, but say, for example, if I walked up, say, the typical kind of secular, educated person today who denies God's existence, and I'd say, how did we get here? There'd be a consistent story. Well, we got here through random mutations, maybe over evolutionary time.
Maybe in the States, but I don't think in Ireland anyway. We're in Ireland at the moment. I would disagree with that. That doesn't mean that I'm right.
So you wouldn't say that atheists believe in evolution?
I know atheists that don't believe in evolution. I mean, this is the thing. You can't box people into categories like that. That reveals a lot about the way that these people approach life and approach conversations and approach people in general. They look at people as in boxes, because it's easier that way. It's a little harder when you have to deal with nuance of views and worldviews and outlooks. And some things don't have anything to do with the conversation. Basically, doesn't matter. She's obviously an atheist of some kind, and she operates from a non-God position. That's all you really need to know.
Not what I said.
So that you do agree then they would?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of someone else. You'd have to ask every single atheist in the world.
Sure, no, and you heard me say before that atheism isn't monolithic.
Yeah.
Then why are you asking her that? Why would you ask her that, atheists don't believe in evolution? Come on, you'd have to ask each and every atheist what they believe. And besides, it's not the point.
Exactly.
But they share particular beliefs about, because you can't just say there is no God and then nothing happens. There's no neutrality. Everybody has a particular view of, say...
Okay, use me as an example of neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's relevant. I'm here now. I don't see what is relevant as to what might happen.
Well, I'll show you how it is relevant. Let's take two frameworks, say the Christian worldview and the atheistic perspective.
Okay.
Perspectives. Okay, so say
by the way,
multiple.
I'm not going to identify with either of those.
That's fine. No, you don't have to. Let's just take it as an experiment, a thought experiment.
Dichotomous thinking, shall we? This is dualism at its finest or worst.
Experiment. Okay, so let's say someone says, well, I don't think it really matters. The question of God doesn't matter. Okay, a person who kidnaps and rapes and mutilates a child, is that wrong?
Okay, here we go. So now she can answer, even if she believes in subjective morality, she can say it's wrong because according to her standard, which is her mind, it's wrong. It's just not objectively wrong, maybe from her point of view. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to corner her into this word game, confuse her, and make her admit that she has no morals, which is just stupid because the subjective component is where morality really, I think, matters as far as values and meanings are concerned. Right? Like, if there is a pattern out there in the universe objectively for murder is wrong, which I can imagine would be the case as an idealist, it doesn't matter. It would be founded on nature. Maybe our evolution is how it gets actuated. You can point to evolution and say, look, our evolutionary history, social evolution history all point to morality that we all share in common. You can make that argument. No God needed.
Yes.
On what basis?
My gut.
What's that?
My gut. My own
Your gut?
feeling. Yeah.
Well, the person who rapes the child, his gut, his pleasure was that he thought it was a good, moral, happy thing to do to the child. And your gut has no authority over him. This is a random universe where there is no God, no justice.
Yeah, but the legal system does have authority over everyone. So if you're waiting for your God to punish the rapist or the murderer, then, you're going to be waiting a long time, and according to these fools, because I'm familiar with their doctrine, all you have to do is accept Jesus Christ and confess your sins, and you can go to heaven. Meanwhile, if the person you raped or murdered was not someone who believed, they're going to hell. Where's the justice in that bullshit? You see? There's all kinds of ways to look at this shit. This just shows the incoherency of the position.
Yeah, but okay, so what's your point in that?
My point was, you said that you don't think it matters.
Yeah.
And I'm demonstrating to you that it does matter, because if we take the atheistic framework, it matters because atheism would ultimately say that we all came from highly evolved societies of bacteria. We're in a universe that doesn't care about us. There is no God above us, only sky above us. There's no meaning, no value, no purpose.
But this conglomeration of atoms right here does not want to see my children suffer, or me to suffer, or others to suffer unnecessarily and through injustice. It doesn't matter whether we're just, atoms in motion or molecules in motion, as he said. That really doesn't matter, because obviously we have laws, and obviously we have law-abiding atheists, and we have voting atheists that vote according to their moral standards, which may be subjective, it may be societal. They behave according to those same things. So it really doesn't matter at the end. Is it wrong? That's what, and if you can agree, then have a nice day. That's all that really matters. These hangups with beliefs and grounding is just sort of mental masturbation. If a person has a child that was killed, they're going to have to deal with that loss for the rest of their lives. They're going to feel the pain. They're going to know it was wrong, whether they're an atheist or not. Meanwhile, you get to mentally masturbate. But I have the word game. I have the semantics that can justify my reason for saying it was wrong. These people think it's wrong only because they lost their child. Like, what a bastard to think that way. That's bullshit. That's not morality. That's just being a dick, in my opinion.
I'll give you Dawkins, Richard Dawkins, famous atheist. He says there is no good, no evil. There's only blind and pitiless indifference, which means that the raped, mutilated child, what happened might have been painful, but it wasn't wrong from an atheistic framework.
Okay, but I don't see what the difference would be just because, let's say, God existed and the same thing happened to that child.
Right. I have a meaningful.
How has that changed the actual?
Exactly. It doesn't change anything. And hey, Vaughn, Eric, and Brooklyn Lou, and everybody out in the chat, I'm so glad you could join me and suffer through this bullshit. But hey, I'm trying to give it all a shot and respond to it from my point of view as well, as an atheist, non-dualist type of person.
Situation, it hasn't.
Right. No, we're in a fallen world and evil things happen in a fallen, sinful world. But we're talking about the moral foundations of being able to complain about a child being raped.
You can complain if a child is raped. You can, and people do. What gives here? What makes it wrong for someone to complain because they don't believe in your God? That it just seems like someone has stunted these people's thought process. It's like they have a huge blind spot. that they can't get past. And it's just this whole God thing. This whole attachment to a God belief is so unhealthy. And this is just an example of how that can be so. Now, I'm not talking about every God believer, and I'm not talking about every flavor of Christianity. I'm not doing that. I'm specifically pointing to these type of people, these type of Christians, and for people to really reflect on that and know what you should say the next time you have a conversation with such people like this. You know, let them know that it doesn't matter what kind of atheist I am or labels. Maybe I operate from a non-God position. Okay. How does that change anything?
The atheist has no ultimate meaningful.
That's your opinion.
Well, no, it's a philosophical refutation of atheism. It's not.
Philosophy doesn't matter. When your child is raped, you have to live with that pain. You have to deal with that injustice. If you're the victim of a rape, you have to deal with that injustice. No one gives two shits about philosophy. This is where the whole Philbro thing comes in. Like, it's so, you know, I don't know, empty. It just strikes me as so empty.
Not merely an opinion.
Okay, but it's still an opinion. It may not be merely an opinion to you, but it still is an opinion.
Well, it's about what provides
Good
meaningful
on you.
conditions for moral indignation.
And by the way, I think this lady, she's doing a really good job holding her own with this guy. I think she's doing excellent. She's trying to bring reason to a stupid conversation. That's the only thing that's going on that I see. This guy is stuck in his version of Christian morality, and he's using that apologetic to try to entrap her in a word game. And I think this is just ridiculous.
Nation over atrocities like that. Now, atheism says all that was a bag of biological stuff that ultimately it's protoplasm in a universe that doesn't care. That's the atheistic perspective. Now, from my perspective as a Christian, that was the image of God. There are absolute standards of good. God is a holy God.
The child is still mutilated.
Sure.
I don't see what the difference.
And the atheist doesn't get to complain about it.
Why?
The atheist doesn't get to complain about it. What a dickhead. What an insensitive bastard. I mean, this is how religion rots the brain. This is how it rots people's heart. When you take it this extreme, it becomes very, very cold and just very, you know, cut by, you know, paste by numbers type of shit. You know, there's no feeling in this shit at all. You know, atheists don't have a right to complain when their child is raped because they have no moral standard. Really?
In a meaningful way, because that's a bag of biological stuff.
Maybe an atheist wouldn't complain to you because you wouldn't listen to it. But
I'd listen to him, and here's why I think they would complain. The atheist would complain because he's in the image of God, and it's inescapable living in God's world.
It's your opinion.
He knows the truth, but he denies it with his profession of atheism.
Okay, but again, that's an opinion.
Well, you keep saying that, but it's a refutation.
Yeah. But it still doesn't change the practicalities of what has happened. And that's
well, we weren't talking about the consequences. We're talking about the foundation.
No.
But the foundation is not what's important. That's just your word game. You're more interested in proving your word game is superior than hers by playing this whole grounding game. I have grounding for morality. Therefore, atheists have no right to complain. Why? They have no grounding. This is just, it's dumb philosophically as well. Like, how do you prove that? Like, can you prove that outside of your book and belief? Can you philosophically prove that it's wrong, it's an error to ground your morality in your gut, like she said? That was her position. She's grounding it in her gut, her feeling. What makes grounding your morality in your feelings wrong? Can you prove it is wrong? I don't think he can. It's just up to your framework, how you frame things. If you're coming from an objective framework, maybe she loses, because obviously not everyone's going to feel like that was wrong. Like the rapist, for example, right? So on that, maybe she loses a point. But in the real meaningful discussion, which is about the practical thing that happened, the real thing, like she's pointing to, it doesn't make a difference, though. That's just philosophical mental masturbation.
But the point is, it doesn't change the practicalities of a situation. So that's why I'm saying I don't think that it matters what happens next.
Sure does.
Because that doesn't change what is happening now.
Oh, it sure does. Because watch, in a Christian,
that's your belief. So I can't, like, I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, but I also can't convince you otherwise because that's what you believe.
Well, no, here's the thing. I think that if we love truth, we should change our opinions. If we love the truth, we should always want to believe the truth. I believe that because I'm a Christian.
But then you're saying that you're closed-minded. You're not interested in truth if you say, well, I believe that because I'm a Christian. Then you're already giving yourself an out from discovering truth. You can't learn anything if you know everything. You know, not knowing is the beginning of learning what's true or not, right? And really, from my point of view as a non-dualist, a lot of this stuff is just based on how we infer things and based on limited amount of information we may have at any given time. The only thing I really know is that I'm experiencing an existence. That's the one thing I can say I know, because I couldn't know anything if I didn't exist, right? That I can say I know. The rest of it, you can argue with me all day about whether it's true or not. My philosophy about idealism, you know, my philosophy about non-dualism, all of these things we can argue about. Atheism versus theism. We can argue that stuff all day long. That is up to viewpoints, frameworks, and perspectives. And I'm willing to change my mind. I've changed my perspectives a number of times. I went from being a hardcore Christian to a hardcore atheist, and now to a more third way type of person, which is sort of like a non-dualist, an idealist, someone who shares that sort of view, you know? So I've changed my mind many times. And I didn't get to where I am overnight. It was a journey. Life is a journey, and everyone has to take their own journey and find out what really resonates with them and what works for them. And it's okay. We can be diverse like that. I don't have a monopoly on the truth. Neither do you. Neither does this Christian, whether he thinks he does or not. It's just his belief. It's his faith. And for me, faith is not a virtue because it does not lead to truth. It leads to a diverse opinions. There's people that have faith that white people are superior than others. There's a faith that says the opposite. So faith is not a certain way to the truth. It really isn't, because you can have faith in anything.
Jesus said he's the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by him. We follow the one who's the very embodiment of truth. We ought to care about truth as Christians. That's a Christian perspective. And it matters because let's say you had two governments. One government that actually believes atheism and runs with it, and one that's Christian. The atheistic government, if they lived on its principles, would say there are no moral absolutes, there's no punishment, no justice, there's no ultimate meaning.
But then you would be using atheism like a belief system.
Sure, because it is.
Any belief system, any absolute belief system is something personally that I cannot ascribe to because I don't.
Do you believe that? What you just said, you believe it?
Well, now you've asked me that, which makes me feel like I haven't articulated myself accurately.
It means it's a self-refutation.
Okay, tell me what I've got.
You made a claim, and you talked about a belief system, and you talked about not wanting to have an ultimate belief system, but I asked you if you believe that.
Yeah.
And you ultimately would say yes, which means that the two statements, they wipe each other out. Okay,
this is more word games. Yeah, like I said, the only thing we really know is that we exist and we're an experience of this existence. That's what's not up to debate. Anything else is sort of an inference. I would say it's not a belief, it's an inference. That's the difference. An inference is a, you could look at it like a belief, but it's a conclusion, and it could be a tentative conclusion. A belief, in the way he says it, would be a high confidence that something is true, even without evidence to back it up. Now, of course, they flip-flop on this because, like I said, they use words like tools. When it works, and when it doesn't, they just change the meaning. I've had a lot of experience dealing with these people. So it's just word games. They're using semantic shell games.
Tell me that again.
Okay. You were making a statement about belief systems, like condemning the idea that someone has an actual belief system and holds to it.
Condemning the idea that someone has a belief system and saying that's not my personal choice or my personal way.
I guess I'm not following you.
I'm just not. I think that in general it is, personally speaking, I don't think that much good can come from everyone following one thing.
How about this?
But that's people with their own individual beliefs.
So it's no good can come from following this one
thing? There are
thing?
going to be so many people who are in that march that there are other things that I disagree with.
No, I know, but you said that there's no good from following any one thing.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't articulate myself properly then. One belief system, and using that belief system to govern all the other choices and beliefs that you have in your life.
But you realize, and I mean this with a lot of respect to you, you realize that you articulated a belief system just now, and you said that this should be the one we follow. That we don't follow any one belief system, but you just gave me one.
No, I didn't say that because I would never wish to
See, she's trying to be reasonable with this guy, and you have to understand they're not trying to reason with you. They're trying to entrap you in their word games. You know, he's an apologist. You know, this is what they do. They try to show that you're contradicting yourself. That's the whole game. You know, oh, you shouldn't force people to believe in what you believe. Yeah, so do you believe that? You just said you shouldn't do that. So you're trying to impose your beliefs onto me, right? In the way that I deal with stuff like that, I'm like, you can do that if you want. You can try to impose your beliefs on me, and it's just not going to work. You have every right to do that. Like, I don't get mad when I see abortion protesters or war protesters or people that are shoving down other people's throat Christianity, whether they come to my door. I welcome all that shit because I like it. I like engagement. I like conversation. I like it because it gives you an opportunity to share ideas. Whether they are hard-headed or not, they're going to learn something regardless, at least if they deal with me, because I'm going to engage them and I'm going to ask them questions. Like, I would love to have a conversation. Like, I don't mind if people believe that people should believe in one thing and be a monolith. I don't mind that. That's their subjective opinion, right? And everyone has a right to that opinion. So I would not frame it in a way that we should do this or that. I would just say, well, I don't personally believe that. I don't personally see the value in forcing everyone to conform to one thing necessarily. And that's not with everything. Maybe there's some things we should conform to. I haven't thought about that, but maybe that exists and I'm not aware of it. Maybe I'm not thinking about something right now. Like murdering people. I think all people shouldn't murder people or rape people. Those are some things I think everyone should be a monolith about, because I don't want to be a victim to any of those sort of crimes, right? So yeah, there's some things I do believe that, but again, that goes back to what I want. It's rooted in what I want. And what I want is a reflection of nature from my point of view. Nature is where we emerge from. So that's what I would ground my morality in, but it still has a subjective component. I won't deny that. In fact, like I said before, the subjective component is what gives you the meaning and the value. You know,
say to anyone else how they should live their lives, because I don't know how they should live their lives.
So would you tell the rapist that he should stop?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a contradiction.
See?
Yes, I would. But I suppose that's because...
can I just say this with respect to you?
Yeah.
The only way you can get to that kind of fallacious, and I don't mean that offensively, I promise I don't, but it is fallacious. What you just did demonstrated the collapse of an unbelieving worldview. Christians can't live with that kind of tension.
Person who doesn't articulate themselves.
No, I don't mean it. No, listen, I mean this with absolute humility to you.
I mean that, like, with all the things as well. Like,
yeah,
I cannot be held up as a representative of something that I'm not part of.
Oh, no. I'm talking about
I'm only one individual. Whereas
sure.
You are, I presume, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are happy to represent Christians.
Sure, I'm a Christian.
Yeah, but you're happy to represent them, whereas I don't wish to represent anything because I can't say that I speak on behalf of anyone else. And even with the people who, yes, we all agree on one thing there, but there could be in all the thousands of people in that march.
I think this lady's doing a great job, man. I think she's doing a really good job holding this professional apologist provocateur who has a lot of experience. He's got years and years of experience doing this kind of crap. And he's doing it to promote his channel, obviously. You know, he's doing it for his own agenda. You know, so he's really good at it. He's put a lot of practice, a lot of investment into himself to do that. For this lady, just a lady off the street, she's doing a great job, man. So kudos to this lady for holding her own.
Could be very few people that I actually have a second opinion that I like, just to be really to exaggerate, that's not quite the word that I mean, just to make a very big statement. There may not be another second thing that I agree with anyone with.
Yeah,
like, yeah, it is.
I think we're getting a little far field of the original thing, but we're talking about a meaningful foundation for moral complaints, moral indignation.
Yeah, but I just disagree with you.
Well, I think that and I mean this with absolute respect to you. I think saying I just disagree with you isn't quite an answer to the challenge I presented to you in terms of what provides a meaningful foundation for ethics. Now, this is an ethical question here. This is all about ethics. On the one side, we say that you ought not be able to kill a human being in the womb, and the other side says it's an injustice to not let us do it.
Okay.
It's all about morality.
Have you read into what the Eighth Amendment is about?
Yes. Eighth Amendment about equalizing the life of the preborn child with the mother.
Well, for me, it's that everyone gets to bring their ideas to the marketplace of ideas. Those who value the life of the unborn versus those who don't value the life of the unborn so much, right? Maybe there's other considerations. There's nuance on both positions. And it gets hashed out in the marketplace of ideas, but it's all has a subjective component to that, because at the end of the day, these sort of political discussions revolve around values and meanings, you know? And what this guy is doing is he's trying to say, well, my value is more superior to yours because it's not just based on subjective opinion. It's based on fact. So until he can provide the proof of his Christian God, then he's not going to be able to make that argument cogently. It's just going to be opinion until he can demonstrate it. And demonstrating that sort of evidence is going to require people agree on what that evidence should look like. You know, what is the standard of evidence? Is it like a low bar? Is it a high bar? You know, if you're a low bar, then you can believe just about anything. Everything can pass a low bar, right? So the higher the bar is, the better. The more rigorous and hard-nosed you can be with your argumentation or with your experiments to promote a certain kind of, idea, the better. But he hasn't presented any of that. He's just making a lot of claims. You should, and I have grounding. Anybody can make stuff up. I can say my morality is grounded in, Beelzebub. That's my God. Now what? And now we have to go into proving which God has the bigger dick and all this kind of shit, right? And that's going to be a lost cause, because nobody can produce that kind of evidence, especially the way that they frame their God as this separate being outside of time and space, whatever that means, right? And this is just more of a failure of dualism trying to exact itself on people. Like, there's no way you can prove this outside fucking concepts like that. They're just concepts. They're abstractions. They come from either inferences or just faith beliefs. In this case, faith beliefs.
Well, that's what it is. That's how it stands.
That's what it. Yeah, that's what it does.
Do you know the implications of that?
That it protects human beings in the womb. Yes.
Do you know the implications of that for people who are pregnant, who then are ill in some other way?
Well, I can tell you the implications as someone who lives in the United States. The implications of doing away with the Eighth Amendment is about 60 million babies deep after 40 years.
No, my question was, do you know what the implications are with how things are at the moment? A lot of this is focused on abortion, and on having the choice of ending an unwanted pregnancy, but it also is to do with access to healthcare for women and women who have a wanted pregnancy.
What's healthcare? What do you mean?
So let's say someone has, now this is something that I hope is correct.
Another thing too, which I think is ironic and hypocritical, is it seems like abortion is in the Bible. It's in their book. Like the whole story about, if you, the test of the unfaithful wife. There's a scripture passage that talks about, if the man goes away, comes back and suspects, his pregnant wife has been cheating on him. The whole thing was drink a potion in the temple made from water and the dirt on the temple floor. Stir it up, make her drink it. If she has a miscarriage, then that proves that she was unfaithful, and God has punished the lady by making her barren. Where is the value for the life of the unborn there? That's right there in the Bible. Not to mention, God's command to kill infants, in certain wars, like with the Philistines and Canaanites and things like that. Where was the value with the infants there? I mean, it's just really hypocritical to now all of a sudden think that only the atheists are the baby killers. And you're making that argument, and you're not considering the nuance of the whole abortion issue. I'm not saying that they should be for or against it. There are atheists who are against abortion. I'm not for abortion, but I'm not against it either. Because sometimes, there's nuance. Suppose it can cause the death of the woman and the child, then having abortion would be the rational thing to do, for example. Just one example. But I ultimately think that's up to the person. It's their life journey. It's their life. It's not my life. It's not my body. They have, the right to own their body. They have body autonomy. That's just my view. I'm not saying that I support it in all cases, but it is what it is, and so, but this hypocritical thing is what I'm pointing out mainly. The Bible supports abortion in some cases, obviously.
basic by saying it may not be completely 100% correct.
Okay.
My understanding is that, and like I'm pro-choice anyway. I think if someone wants to end an unwanted pregnancy for whatever reason, they should be.
You keep using the term unwanted pregnancy. Mm-hmm. It seems like that's a euphemism to me.
Yes.
What we're really talking about is
they do not want.
Right, but what's a pregnancy? What's in there?
I'm not getting into. We disagree, so I'm not getting into that part.
What I mean is it's an interesting way to frame the argument is to
pregnant.
Right, but getting rid of a pregnancy is getting rid of a what?
But I'm not talking about that element of things, and it depends. I'm not talking about that element of things. I'm talking.
But isn't that the main issue?
You asked me about healthcare for women.
Sure, yeah.
Well, it's the whole assumption that everybody shares the same view that human life is always sacred. Obviously, you're a hypocrite with that too, because I'm sure this guy believes in the death penalty. I'm sure this guy believes life is sacred, but it's negotiable. It depends on who's dying and who's doing the killing, right? What about the Amalekites, the Philistines, the Canaanites that God killed, the people in Noah's flood? Were their lives sacred? No, of course, but the difference is these babies are innocent. Yeah, well, so were the babies in that were killed. They were commanded to be stabbed and cut in half or whatever, right? Like let's have some consistency here. It seems like in the Bible, children were used as a tool to punish the people that were maybe the parents of that child, like King David, for example. Part of his punishment was that his child had to suffer for 7 days and die. What did the child do wrong? Oh, but God has the right to take away life and all of that. Well, then God is, not consistent with his own moral standards. And to me, it just seems like a cop-out. It's just something I don't understand. It doesn't resonate with me. It seems hypocritical. You're saying God is a hypocrite.
So what I mean by that is, this is my understanding that if, for example, my example may be wrong, but I understand that the principle is still the case. That if a woman had an illness that she needed treatment for that could harm let's say it was a wanted pregnancy. Yeah. So, and I don't know, so let's call the thing in the belly a baby.
You just said child.
Yeah. So, but that's such semantics.
But you're having a hard time.
Because I know that you'll pick on everything that I'm saying.
No, not pick on it. I want to encourage you with love to be consistent. Say child, because that's what it is. You meant it.
That's the way that they use the semantic word game. Again, they try to entrap you in your words to make you contradict yourself. I think the best way to do it is just give them the things, have this stuff well thought out. Yeah, it's a child, it's a human child. But again, you have to diffuse that somehow first. You have to diffuse that whole argument. If you're going to support abortion and you feel you have rational arguments to do so, as she's trying to lay out here to him, the nuance, then, you have to diffuse that. And the best way is to just give them certain things, grant certain things with charity. Because, it's just like the whole atheist label is going back to that shit again. Just let them know, okay, I'm not an atheist according to the way you understand atheism. But I do operate from a non-God position. Boom! You've just diffused that part, and you can move on in the conversation and make your point. But this guy, he's controlling the conversation by tripping you up with contradictions, trying to make you feel like you contradicted yourself and confuse you.
Because I was thinking of a wanted pregnancy, and I was thinking of myself.
So wanting it makes it a child. The mere desire to want.
It would be what I would call it. And again, I can only speak on behalf of myself.
So if a mother kills her 3-year-old,
I'm saying that's not what I said.
And she says, I didn't want it.
That's a false equivalency. That's not what I said.
Well,
but really my point is access to healthcare. You asked about that. If a person who is pregnant needs treatment, and that may harm the pregnancy, that may prematurely.
Again, she's trying to be reasonable. She's trying to bring reason to a very stupid conversation. This guy doesn't give a shit about women's problems. The only thing he cares about is promoting his superstition, promoting his faith belief. Until he can prove his God, get back to me. When you can prove that stuff, get back to me. Then we can talk about that. Until then, you've just got a concept that you have faith in. Obviously, you can't produce it. Otherwise everyone would be theist. Everyone would be a God believer. But obviously not everyone is, especially like people who are skeptics. Skeptics believe in the moon and the sun and the stars and the earth, and they believe that the Bible exists. They believe that a lot of things because it's common knowledge. That I think that's all they're asking for, is that same level of evidence for the God before they actually believe it in the same way. Right? That's all.
End the pregnancy, then
That doesn't.
you may not have.
Pregnancy is a state. You can't harm a pregnancy. You can harm.
Prematurely end the pregnancy then. Can prematurely end a pregnancy.
Sure.
So if the treatment that person was to get would prematurely end the pregnancy, then that treatment may not be available to the person. So that's a lot of what this is about. The focus and the media coverage, and to be honest, a lot of the signs are focusing on access to abortion and having choice. That's one element of it.
To kill your child at will, though, is the.
But another element of it
Right.
is access to health.
But isn't it?
Not actually really.
Isn't the real foundational thing here? Because I'll tell you, the signs I saw was keep your laws out of my vagina, stay out of my box, keep your theology off my biology, my body, my choice. It sounds like you're saying that it's about if a woman's life is in danger, health-wise, in terms of she has cancer or she can't give birth to the child. But that's not what they're debating about.
That's literally what I just said. I said a lot of that focus is on access to abortion, which again, I am.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm completely for that.
So if a woman is 20 weeks pregnant, you think she should just be able to kill her child?
But there are also other elements to it as well. So it's not just that one.
So when is it okay to?
Right. That's the whole point, is people can be against abortion for different reasons. But, his whole presuppositionalist apologetic just fell flat for me. I'm still not convinced. Yeah, Von Erich, he's playing word games to glorify himself. Exactly, man. Exactly. He's trying to win. And he's trying to promote his channel and his mission. It's really sad that people operate from this kind of way, because these are serious matters. If you're seriously against abortion, then first of all, concentrate on proving your foundation. If your foundation is the Christian God, try to find out what would convince the most atheists. Find out what would convince the person you're talking to who may not be a believer. Try to find out what they would need to, first of all, believe in your God, and then in the Bible. That's a lot of work ahead of you, because a lot of atheists used to be Bible believers. They already know the Bible. They're already familiar with God. They know the arguments. So you've got a lot of work ahead of you if that's your real concern. But you're not going to convince a non-believer just by saying word games. People can see through it. This lady, she saw through it. She's just a lady off the street. All of you guys in the chat, some of you are Christians. You even see it. He's just playing word games in order to prop himself up. And that doesn't come off very convincing. It doesn't do a lot to stop abortion. You know, if you really want, if that is really serious, then you would start trying to build a foundation, not just use word games to sort of, you know, trick people with some kind of Jedi mind trick into believing, oh yeah, I don't have a foundation. It's subjective, and subjective morals and subjective ideas just don't mean anything. I lost meaning. Therefore, the Christian God must be true, or the Hindu God, or the, you know, the Islamic God must be true, because I lack foundation and grounding for my beliefs. And I have beliefs, and I can't have beliefs because that's a contradiction to me, right? Therefore, I might as well admit beliefs. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well believe in the Islamic God, or the Christian God, or the Hindu God, or whatever God, right? That doesn't work. That to me, I don't know. Maybe you guys have different idea about that, but I think that it's a weak argument. The word game argument just doesn't do it for me. I think because that's not what motivates people. The little old lady down at the church gives a fuck less about the presuppositional apologetic for God. She really doesn't. She doesn't even know what it means. She doesn't even care. All she knows is she goes to church and she feels better when she goes to church. She has a church family. She's been going to that church for 40 years now. She loves her pastor. She don't need all these arguments to convince her. She already knows that she knows that she knows, and there ain't a damn thing that you're going to say to convince me otherwise. Well, there's a lot of atheists that believe that too, and it's just a lost cause to think that that's going to work. You know, you can, yeah, I agree with this. You can presuppose yourself into anything, really. You know, that's what a presupposition, that's what presuppositionalism is. That's what a presupposition is. It's an assumption going into an argument. Kind of like an axiom in a way. Like, if we assume this, then all of these other things follow. That's great if you're talking to people that already agree with your assumption. But these people treat their assumptions as if they are sound. They're not sound because you have to demonstrate them. Remember, the God concept comes with a lot of definitions that you have made about your God. Like, he's a Trinity. He's all loving. You know, he's an omni-God maybe, or maximally great. He knew the future before he created anything. He knew beforehand how everything was going to turn out because he's God after all. You know, there's a lot of properties. He's infinite. So there's like an infinite amount of properties. So it's not the most parsimonious argument. It's going to be really hard to convince some people that are very logical minded, because the more, you know, properties and assumptions that you bake into your concepts, those are just more points of failure you possibly have to overcome. You know, now you have to explain this mystery by explaining this mystery by explaining that mystery. And how are you going to do that? Presuppositions and apologetics just come into play when theists argue with others. Internally, there's no need to presupposition within a church, right? And I think that, you know, the way I look at it, and I hate to say this, I think apologetics exist so that believers don't feel stupid, because they interact with people who are not believers. And so these apologetics are there to back them up. I got you. I got an argument that you can tell them. You know, because Christianity is all about proselytizing. It's about converting people. You know, the Great Commission, you know, go ye out to the nations and preach the gospel. You know, go, you know, Paul says, reason with people. have a good reason for the faith that is within you. You know, it's always encouraged to argue with people, or reason with people about their God, about Christianity and Jesus and all of that. Even Jesus, he says, you know, go door to door, and if they reject you, just wipe your sandals off and keep on walking. Don't waste your time. Don't cast pearls before swine. But the whole point is, go forth with this message. And see, now we have the internet, we have Google, we have AI, we have so many tools at our disposal to gather knowledge about all kinds of things that are counterfactual to the Christian claim. And so now Christians have to be very clever in order to do that work, because a lot of people have genuinely understand that Christianity in their mind is false because of these facts. So you have to show how these facts are debunked. These are not facts. Evolution is not true. If you're a creationist, you have to show people evolution is not true. The world is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old, depending on your denomination. You have to come up with arguments and counterfactuals. And it's getting harder and harder because we're learning more and more about the world. You know, through science and through history and through technology, we're able to gather all kinds of information, things that overthrow old paradigms, even with materialistic people, even with people that believe in certain things about reality, like local realism. Some people think that, you know, in this thing called local realism is fundamental. But in 2022, there was a Nobel Prize awarded to 3 physicists who closed the loophole on that and showed that there is no local realism. And this is a big problem, because a lot of religious people can use stuff like that to smuggle in their ideas and concepts of God. So everyone has to sort of refine their arguments and points of conversation. But it should be, for me, it should be based on the facts. Your conclusions should come from the facts, and your conclusions should always be tentative. Don't get too attached to your beliefs. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you know the capital T truth. Philosophy for me is never about capital T truth. Philosophy is about just challenging baked in assumptions, like hidden assumptions, or assumptions that you're explicitly making, perhaps. That's what a philosophy is about. It's a humble approach. It's about questioning long-held assumptions, especially in light of new facts. That's what philosophy is about. Religion, on the other hand, is about absolute truth, faith and belief, like a huge, high confidence that something is true, absolutely true. This, you know, like the presuppositionalists will tell you, you know, the Bible doesn't say if God, it says, no, God created. Not if God created, God created. In other words, we know there's a God. And the Bible never has any sort of arguments for why we should believe in that God to begin with. It just starts off with God, Yahweh, or Elohim, you know, this composite of gods or whatever, the host of hosts, and then it evolved or whatever. Maybe some people see it as the Trinity, that in the beginning was the Trinity. Elohim was talking about that Trinity God. Okay, great. Great. Sounds really cool on paper. Sounds really deep, bro. But how do I find out whether that's true? How can we test that? How can we figure that out? You know, all you really have is a belief. Yeah, I know my chair is really creaky. It's a creaky chair. Man, so it's like, you know, I think it's just based on assumptions and beliefs, and people believe things for a lot of reasons. But it's okay. But if you're going to go out in the street and convince people who don't believe what you do, just playing word games and semantics is not going to do the trick, in my view. I can't imagine that this actually works in real life. Maybe it does. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't think that it really could work, because it just doesn't seem very compelling to me. It just seems like you're begging the question. It's a big, huge begging the question fallacy. You know, it's an assumption. It's all based on an assumption. So, yeah, man. Anyways, I've been going on for an hour. I don't want to get into ranting too much and stuff like that. Just wanted to share this video. Thank you, guys, for showing up, man. A lot of viewers this time, and I know that this is a topic people really like. Yep. People gonna believe what they believe, and we all know people dumb as fuck. You damn right about that. This country is full of dumb motherfuckers. Dumb motherfuckers floating around this bitch. I mean, and it's because they're just driven by, you know, a low IQ kind of society, really. Our education sucks. No one's really skeptical. Everyone's in an echo chamber. Everyone's just dug in. They dug in their heels in. We present the facts, they just dig in. And yeah, when we see that idiocy, we should really recognize it and be able to confront it. And the one thing that I like to do, instead of arguing with these kind of, like, if I take my time out to talk to these people and I don't send them to the kiddie table and I actually engage with these people, I would rather do like an internal critique. You know, let's just, for shits and giggles, assume that your assumptions are correct. And let's look into your Bible. Let's look into your belief system, and let's see where there's a contradiction. If one, that's the first step. For one thing, if your claim should be internally consistent, at least. You know, let's look at the omni properties of your God. Let's look at the Trinity. Is it logical? Let's look at the teachings. Are they consistent throughout the book? You know, there's a lot of things you can do, internal critiques, to sort of find out whether it's internally contradictory. Because if it's contradictory, then it's all automatically can easily be dismissed. You know, I understand paraconsistent logics and stuff like that, but hey, you know, most people aren't even familiar with that shit. And those are special cases in a lot of ways. And they're usually applied to grammar in the way we put sentences together and stuff like that. You know, like, you know, this statement is false. You know, is that true or not? You know, well, if it's true, then it's false. But if it's false, then it makes the sentence true. So it's kind of like a contradiction. So use paraconsistent logic to kind of make sense of those sort of dilemmas or paradoxes, you know. But with this God stuff, I don't know if a lot of that falls into that category. Now, they try to say Trinity does fall into stuff like that, but most people don't really reason that way. And in real life, we don't really reason that way for the most part. It's kind of stupid. But it can be, especially when you talk about deep metaphysics, it may apply. So you can at least have that conversation. That's fine. But internal critiques is one way to approach these kind of people, because just like you're not just going to buy their arguments because it's based on their baked in assumptions, they're not going to buy yours. They're not going to try to be reasonable and see things from your point of view. They see things from their point of view. That's the whole point. So, you know, if, you know, be charitable, go into their worldview and look for they're easy to find. You can find the contradictions easily. Easily. You can find them. And you can do that exploration, man. And you can start to see, and that will explain to people why you don't buy it. And then you have an understanding. You've established at least an understanding. Now, they may not change their mind. I don't give a fuck about that. People can be stuck on stupid all they want. Everyone has a right to be stupid. But at least they should understand why. And that conversation should be closed unless they can come back with a better argument. And that kind of like pushes the conversation forward. Even internal critiques don't work because their excuses, you just don't know God. Yeah, of course. And that's when you send them to the kiddie table. Because they're using kiddie logic. That's when you send them to the kiddie table. You're like, yeah, well, in that case, we have nothing to talk about. You know, send them to the fucking kiddie table. Save humanity from God and his evil books. Exactly, man. A lot of hatred, a lot of shit comes from religious, duality. That duality it's all just tribal bullshit. Everyone thinks they know the mind of God until you ask how they know. Then he's incomprehensible. Yeah. Well, God's ways is above our ways. Who knows the mind of God? My favorite thing is to say, holy shit, you're a child, not worth it. Yeah, exactly. They go to the kiddie table, man. Because who's got time to really entertain dumb conversations? Like this guy's whole precept argument he was trying to make with this lady, it was just a dumb conversation. It got nowhere. But at least, he learned. I think he learned that, what? Fuck. There's people that can actually hold me for a fucking argument, though. Because he didn't refute her one single bit. Really he didn't. I mean, he just tried to keep goal shifting and using the semantic games. Well, what do you mean by you are an atheist? Atheist is this and that. Okay, so what? Trying to argue over words, trying to entrap you in your words, make you look like that you are contradicting yourself, But I guarantee you, if you change the subject and you say, well, let's talk about Jesus. How do I know that he walked on water? Can we talk about that? Let's talk about that. How can I know Jesus walked on water? Oh, then they won't want to talk to you anymore. Well, you're coming from a non-God place, so you have no grounding to even ask those questions. You have no grounding to even think those things. Like, that's beside the point. I can say, okay, you know what? I give up. You made a point. You're exactly right. I have no grounding. Thank you for pointing that out. So I think now I believe. I think now I can believe in God. Now, can you tell me how I can believe that Jesus walked on water? They'll have nothing. They have nothing at that point. They run from their book. They are scared of their fucking book, man. They really run from their bullshit when it's exposed. They want to talk about this Philbro type shit because they think it's a gotcha. It's their gotcha moment. That's all they have. And this is like one of the latest fucking argumentation sort of apologetic. It's not evidentialism anymore. It's not the Kalam. They beat those to death. It's gotten nowhere. So now they go with this logic kind of shit, this little circular logic bullshit. By the way, I'm hoping I have a debate coming up. I have someone, an atheist, that's going to be debating me on Platonic forms, which is based on the work of Michael Levin. And a lot of people feel like it's woo-woo. A lot of people feel like it's a belief system that has no sort of evidence to back it up. And so we're going to have that debate. Hopefully, he said he would debate it as long as we follow some rules or whatever. Factual, when, I want you to present facts. If you can't present facts, then fuck it. I'm like, because he's really confident that I have no facts. So this should be interesting, whether you believe in what I'm talking about or not. It should be entertaining for everybody. You want to watch me get owned and destroyed? Great. Check it out. I enjoy it. I enjoy being challenged. I don't mind learning new things. I don't mind losing a debate, just like I don't mind winning a debate. But I go into debates to win, just like I go into any chess game or checkers game or anything like that. I go into it to win. So I'm going to be prepared. Hopefully this will happen here soon and he won't back out. Not that you were asking, but let me recommend getting yourself some sound foam and put it on the wall facing you. Yeah, believe me, hashtag unprofessionalism. My producer is a cat. Her name is Moxie. She's not very good at my production value. I have to talk to her. I'm going to try to get her to improve my my situation here. No, I really am trying to get it stepped up. I really am. Not even about professional. Well, thank you. I'm just playing, but yeah, I know what you mean. A mic with a sound gate would solve a bit too, like a compressor. You know, that's what I need to get. Like I actually have a mic right here, but I don't have the compressor. Like I tried running it through this thing here. Like I have this this device here. It's actually a vocoder. So it doesn't do anything for compression. It didn't really make the sound that much better. I need to get one of those little preamps, that USB preamps that I can put in my computer here, run the mic through it. Then it'll have compression and level settings and make it sound fuller and better. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I just need to get a job. I start a new job on January 5th. I've been unemployed for the last 4 months. And now my unemployment has run out. And I've been just selling stuff and delivering stuff and doing whatever I can to raise money for myself. And yeah, Roadcaster. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yep. I'll get something soon, man. I'll start my job here soon. So yeah. And thank you, man. Thanks for the congratulations. Yeah, I'm very relieved. I've been looking for a job these last 4 months and it's just been dry out here, man. Really dry. And that's why I'm starting to pick up on doing videos. I know that a job's coming, so I've kind of relaxed on the job search. I'm already hired, so I'm not so busy, you know, looking for jobs and everything like that. So my situation is kind of getting a little better. It's evolving. And yeah, man. Anyways, save humanity from book worshipers, for real. They're like, I always say, they're like a book club, but that only reads one fucking book. This is my account I do videos on at Collapsitalism, I guess. Or, oh, Dots is my old original. Okay, cool, man. Check it out. Right now, I got to run. I got somebody going to buy a piece of equipment from me. So I'm just selling all my shit, man. But I'll get it back as soon as I get to working and stuff like that. Anyways, man, I don't want to hold y'all up. I got to get ready to meet this dude. And yeah, we'll talk soon, man. Thank you for tuning in and thanking. And yeah, we will do it. Y'all be good, man.